They say old houses remember things, every creak, every breath, every whisper that was never meant to be heard. But sometimes, the house doesn't just remember, it waits. And when I was a child, that house on my grandparents' farm remembered me. What happened there still keeps me awake at night. When I was little, my parents would send me to my grandparents' farm in Pennsylvania for 2 weeks every summer. The house sat on 40 acres of mostly woods. It was honestly more woods than farm. My cousin Francisco would come for different weeks because our parents wanted to give our grandparents a break between visits. I always went first 2 weeks of July. He always went last 2 weeks of August. The house had 3 floors, but the 3rd floor was just an attic with one finished room that used to be my dad's when he was my age. That's where I slept. The ceiling slanted down on both sides, and there was one window that overlooked the backyard into the woods. My grandparents went to bed early, usually before 9 o'clock. My parents told me it was rude to stay up past them, so I'd stay in my room after they wished me good night. I wouldn't sleep, though. I would stay up reading with a flashlight or playing my Game Boy. There wasn't much else to do there. The first summer went by without incident, but I started noticing weird things the second summer I was there. On one of the first nights, I was reading in bed when I heard footsteps on the attic stairs. They sounded soft, like someone was trying to be quiet. I watched as the door handle turned and pushed open about 6 inches. As soon as I saw the door opening, I shut my light off and pretended to be asleep. I honestly thought it was my grandma coming to check on me, and I was worried that I'd get in trouble if she found out I was awake. But I didn't hear anything after that. No receding footsteps or the sound of the door closing. I forced myself to sleep, assuming I had either missed my grandma leaving or she was still watching me for whatever reason. The next morning, I told my grandpa about the footsteps. He said the house was old and made noises and that raccoons sometimes got in the walls. I thought that was an especially strange explanation because I was pretty sure I had seen the door handle turn, but I didn't want to say that. The footsteps were far too soft to be his anyway. So, I just assumed it was my grandma and he wasn't actually aware of it. 3 nights later, I woke up, or at least I thought I woke up, because my bed was shaking. There was someone standing at the foot of my bed. It was dark, but I could see their outline. I couldn't tell which of my grandparents it was, but it still scared me nonetheless. I closed my eyes and silently counted to 100. When I opened them, the person was gone. I convinced myself it had just been a nightmare, but it didn't feel like one. When I woke up the next morning, my closet door was open, even though I knew it had been closed the night before, which made me doubt whether I had truly been asleep. I started suspecting my grandma was spying on me while I was asleep, as stupid as that sounds. It was the only explanation that made sense to me. Elderly people don't always have the best control over their minds, after all. It was scary, but I didn't want to bring it up to my grandparents again out of fear of upsetting or disrespecting them. Similar things happened periodically over the course of that week and the next. And when it came time to go home, I was relieved. When my mom picked me up, I told her everything. She laughed and said it was impossible to get my grandma out of bed after she fell asleep. Then she told me I had an active imagination and that old houses were creepy. She said Francisco never complained about anything when he stayed there. That made me feel like maybe I really was just imagining things. I went back the next summer, and the same things happened. I never actually saw my grandma's face, but I knew it was her. I started going to sleep much earlier to reduce the risk of being awake for something creepy to happen. Years went by. My parents stopped sending me to my grandparents' farm after a certain age, and a big part of me was relieved. My grandparents passed away when I was in college within mere weeks of each other. The funeral was the most depressing thing ever. Besides how sad it was, I had to converse with a bunch of relatives I hadn't seen in years, which I wasn't thrilled about. One such relative was Francisco, who I actually hadn't interacted with much, even though we were around the same age. It took less than a minute for me to realize I had nothing in common with him. Besides our age, the only thing we really did have in common was our shared time at the farm. So, I asked him about it, not really knowing what else to talk about and feeling like something related to our grandparents was a valid topic of conversation. I told him about what I had experienced there. The footsteps, the figure, the closet door. I even told my theory about it being our grandma. I expected him to laugh or maybe agree with me, but I was wrong. With a blank expression, he said, and I'll never forget this. "That's nothing. That thing used to touch me." I listened in horror as he described things that were categorically worse than what I had experienced. He said the same figure would stand at the foot of his bed every few nights, but it didn't just watch him like it watched me. He would feel the mattress sink down like it was sitting. Then he would feel fingers on his face, tracing his features. Sometimes it would grab his wrist and hold it. He said he kept his eyes shut and remained frozen in place until it left. I asked him how he knew it wasn't one of our grandparents. And he said, almost like it was obvious, that he could feel it, that the thing that was touching him had rough and scratchy hands, unlike either of our grandparents. I looked at him in shock. I genuinely couldn't believe what he was telling me. Why would he keep something like that to himself? I asked him that, and he said he didn't. That he told his mom about the occurrences several times. She didn't believe him and actually got mad when he'd complained about it to her. So, he stopped talking about it and told himself that as long as he kept his eyes closed and didn't move, everything would be okay. Hearing him tell me that was quite literally horrifying. Not only did it confirm everything I myself had been experiencing, but it made things so much worse. Francisco and I stopped talking about it after that, and I could tell both of us just wanted to forget about the shared nightmare and leave it in the past with the rest of our childhood. But if it wasn't my grandma who was coming into my room at night, I don't like thinking about what it could mean. The way Francisco described it as a thing is something that still freaks me out. But is it any better thinking about how it might have been a human being? That would mean there was a person my grandparents didn't know about living in their house for years. I don't know which is worse.